At 2:37 a.m., the hospital corridor was dead silent. No footsteps from nurses, no hushed conversations between doctors. Just a slow, rhythmic beep of distant machines and the low hum of fluorescent lights. And then the barking started. This wasn't just any bark. It was fierce, desperate, utterly terrified. A highly trained canine unit dog Maxu had been calm and obedient all night. Suddenly froze in front of room 207. The guards on duty laughed nervously at first. Maybe he smells leftover food, one of them joked, trying to break the tension. But Max wasn't joking. He bared his teeth at the closed door, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Teneholed, a sound so full of anguish. It was like he was witnessing death itself. He began clawing at the walls, so frantically his paws started to bleed, leaving red streaks on the pale paint. The head nurse, flustered, checked her records. Room 207 was supposed to be empty. No patient, no equipment, no visitors. It was a completely abandoned, decommissioned room. And yet, Max seemed willing to tear the entire hospital apart to get inside. What they eventually found behind that door would make grown men cry and cause one doctor to quit medicine forever. But the true, chilling horror didn't reveal itself until Max refused to leave the bed inside. The Hospital of St. Mary's stood like a giant of glass and concrete against the sleeping city. By day, it was a whirlwind of panic, prayers, and the constant echo of footsteps. But at night, it transformed. It became something else entirely. Quiet, cold, haunted. Officer Daniel Cross had patrolled these very grounds for over 3 years. He thought he'd seen it all. Grieving families, desperate surgeons, people taking their final breaths, and newborns fighting for their first. But nothing, not even the sight of a dying child, could have prepared him for the night Max lost his mind in front of room 207. Max was no ordinary dog. He was a German shepherd, expertly trained in narcotics detection, and this dog had served in disaster zones. He had found survivors buried under collapsed buildings. He had sniffed out danger in places humans couldn't even begin to sense. Max was the definition of calm, disciplined, and focused. So when he suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, his body rigid, ears pricked up, tail stiff as a rod, Daniel felt a strange, icy chill creep down his spine. "What is it, Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible in the silence. Max didn't even glance at him. His gaze was locked, fixated on the faded blue door just ahead. Initially, Daniel assumed someone had wandered in where they shouldn't be. Maybe a homeless person seeking shelter, or a disoriented patient from another floor. It happened more often than you'd think. "Hospital security," a cadet, his voice firm. "Is anyone inside?" "Only silence," answered. Max's low growl deepened, vibrating through the floor. It was the kind of growl that didn't just warn of a physical threat, but of something unnatural. Then he erupted into barking. Loud, sharp, frantic barks that echoed through the empty hallway, each one sounding like a desperate alarm. The lights above them flickered once, twice. Daniel felt his heart begin to hammer against his ribs. "Control. I need a nurse to check an empty room," Daniel whispered urgently into his radio, trying to keep his voice steady. "My dog is reacting strangely at 207. A nurse named Maria arrived moments later, looking visibly irritated by the disturbance. "Officer, that room was officially closed 2 days ago. I'm telling you, there's nothing in there." As if to prove her wrong, Max rammed his powerful body against the door. Hard. Again. And again. The wood groaned under the impact. "Open it," Daniel said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Maria hesitated, her hand trembling as she finally swiped the keycard. The lock clicked open with a sound that seemed far too loud in the oppressive silence. Slowly, creaking, the door swung inward, inch by painful inch. They stepped inside, and that's when the temperature plummeted. It felt like walking into a freezer. There was no patient, no monitors, number 4 stands, no equipment at all, just a single, stark bed. entered the room, and on it was a deep, unmistakable dent in the mattress, as if someone had been lying there for hours. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The sheets were warm. Not just slightly warm, but warm like a living body had just gotten up from that very spot seconds ago. Max bolted past them and leaped onto the bed. He sniffed the empty space urgently, his tail still, his whole body shaking with a nervous energy Daniel had never seen before. He circled the invisible shape on the mattress, then let out a broken, heart-shattering whine, and then he curled himself into the hollow of the dent, as if he was trying to protect someone who was no longer there. Maria covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. "Someone was here," she whispered, her voice trembling. I swear I cleaned this room myself this morning." Daniel's blood felt like it had turned to ice in his veins. He took a step closer on T-pillow. There was a single, fresh, wet tear mark. But no one had been admitted to this room. There was no name in the system. There was absolutely no reason for anyone to have ever been in there.